Chevron facing the consequences after causing an oil spill off the coast of Brazil, a fine of nearly $27 million. More than 2 weeks after the spill and under increased scrutiny for its response, Chevron is admitting it made some mistakes.
Chevron takes full responsibility for this incident. We responded to it quickly and effectively, and we will continue to respond to it. Any oil on the surface of the ocean is unacceptable to Chevron, and we will work diligently until there is none.
Many people here in Brazil are growing increasingly dissatisfied with Chevron's handling of this spill, and now government officials are looking into other possible infractions by the company that could eventually push the fines to well over $125 million. Among the possible Chevron infractions being investigated, that the company wasn't ready to implement its emergency response plan.
The company didn't have the necessary expertise to deal with this type of crisis. My crew aboard the platform asked the engineers who were there and were told, "We don't know how to deal with this problem."
Chevron is also being accused of withholding information from government officials. The company provided only an edited video of the spill site, which allegedly hampered the early stages of the investigation. Ildo Luis Sauer, a former Petrobras executive, is highly critical of Chevron's response, but says that the Brazilian government also needs to bear some responsibility.
It's not acceptable anymore to talk about fining after it happens. In one side, with the prime responsible, that's the one that operates. But the second is that the one that grants licenses, concessions, and does not take the necessary measures in advance. And that's the case of the Brazilian government also. The Brazilian government has to bring to today new legislation, a new regulatory framework.
Right now, some of the most aggressive offshore oil drilling anywhere in the world is happening in Brazil, where hundreds of billions of barrels of deep water reserves are thought to reside. But for Chevron, even if more fines are leveled against the company for the latest offshore mishap here, it's unlikely to have a major effect on the bottom line. Chevron reported third-quarter profits this year of $7.8 billion. Gabriel Elizondo, Al Jazeera, Sao Paulo.
Well, Chevron has changed its story several times over the course of this spill. When the leak began on November 8th, Chevron initially said it was a result of, quote, natural seepage and unrelated to their deep-sea well. However, by November 10th, Chevron admitted it wasn't natural seepage and said the slick comprised of 60 barrels of oil. Only 2 days later, the company changed that 60 barrels to 450 to 600 barrels and has stuck to that estimate. But ANP, Brazil's National Petroleum Agency, says it's more like 3,000 barrels which seeped into the ocean. And on November 17th, Chevron told Al Jazeera it is unlikely any oil will wash ashore. But earlier, Rio's energy secretary said oil could still wash up in the coming weeks. Earlier, I spoke with Tyson Slocum. He heads up the energy program at Public Citizen, a corporate watchdog group based here in Washington. I asked him how he thinks Chevron was handling the spill.
Clearly, the Brazilians are very unhappy. They claim that Chevron didn't supply all of a critical video feed that would have given Brazilian officials a clear understanding of exactly what the environmental damage was with the oil leak at the bottom of the ocean floor. And so because Brazil is claiming that Chevron wasn't entirely forthcoming in turning over all of this documentation as requested, they've been, rhetorically at least, fairly harsh with the company. They've already handed down a $28 million U.S. equivalent fine, which is very, very quick, and they're threatening at least another $60 million or so U.S. dollar fine for environmental damages. And apparently Brazilian authorities are also threatening to reevaluate Chevron's upcoming offshore contracts with the country. So it's very clear that Brazilian authorities have voiced their displeasure with what they call misleading ways that Chevron has handled this crisis so far.
Given Chevron's handling of this incident and, of course, the consequent pollution that it's caused out there in the ocean, is it likely then that there could be delays in the Brazilian government granting more rights or permits in these so-called subsalt areas?
Possibly, especially if it's Chevron that's concerned. What Brazil is also very upset about is that under the terms of these deep water offshore contracts off of Brazil, Brazilian authorities have required producers like Chevron to have all sorts of necessary equipment on site available to very quickly plug up leaks on the ocean floor. And apparently in this case, Chevron did not have that material ready. It took several days to get that material in place. And Brazil is claiming that that's a violation of the terms of the agreement to allow Chevron offshore drilling access. So I think what you're going to probably see is Brazil doing an inventory analysis of some of the other existing offshore units to make sure that all these offshore drillers are in compliance with Brazilian statutes.